Menopause arrives at 51 on average, but the biological shift that shapes your cardiovascular and bone risk for the next 3 decades starts up to 8 years earlier, and what you eat during that window appears to matter more than most guidance acknowledges. Women can spend more than a third of their lives in the postmenopausal phase, yet dietary guidance for this stage is rarely specific, evidence-led, or optimistic. A 2024 systematic review published in Ames Public Health, indexed on PubMed, examined the full body of intervention research on the Mediterranean diet and menopausal women, and the findings are striking. This is not a trend diet. It is a decades-researched dietary pattern that maps precisely onto the biological changes menopause triggers. Here is what the science actually shows. When estrogen declines, the body does not simply lose a hormone, it loses a systemic regulator. During the reproductive years, estrogen actively protects endothelial function, moderates LDL cholesterol, and supports bone mineral density. When that protection withdraws, the physiology shifts. Research consistently links menopause onset with a heightened prevalence of metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular risk markers, and accelerated bone loss. The mean age of natural menopause in the United States is approximately 51 years, and the transition can span several years of compounding change. Hot flashes and night sweats affect the majority of women in this window. Joint pain, mood shifts, disrupted sleep, and central weight gain frequently follow. Understanding why these changes happen at the cellular level is the foundation for understanding why what you eat in this phase matters far more than general healthy eating guidance suggests. The Mediterranean diet is not a meal plan. It is a dietary pattern modeled on traditional eating habits across Greece, Italy, France, and Spain. Its core structure is well defined in the research literature. Abundant vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, and whole grain cereals, extra virgin olive oil as the primary fat source, moderate fish intake, low consumption of red and processed meat, saturated fat and added sugar, and moderate dairy. From a macronutrient standpoint, the pattern delivers roughly 55% of energy from carbohydrate, close to 30% from fat, dominated by monounsaturated fatty acids, and the remaining 15% from protein. Crucially, it also delivers a dense load of bioactive compounds, omega-3 fatty acids, polyphenols, antioxidant vitamins, and phytoestrogens from legumes and whole grains. Each of these has a specific and researched role in the menopausal body. Hot flashes are driven in part by the hypothalamus becoming hypersensitive to small temperature changes when estrogen and progesterone withdraw. Dietary factors influence that sensitivity directly. A large prospective cohort study, the Australian Longitudinal Study on Women's Health, tracked 6,040 women over 9 years and found that those most closely following a Mediterranean-style dietary pattern were approximately 20% less likely to report moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms than those following a high-fat, high-sugar pattern. Omega-3 intake from oily fish and monounsaturated fat from olive oil were identified as the strongest dietary correlates. A 2025 cross-sectional study published in Scientific Reports further observed that women with the highest Mediterranean diet adherence had substantially lower odds of experiencing moderate to severe hot flashes and sexual discomfort. The direction of evidence is consistent, though researchers note that more prospective trials are needed to characterize causality. Bone loss accelerates sharply in the first 3 to 5 years after menopause, and muscle mass follows a parallel decline. A cross-sectional study of 105 postmenopausal women, published in the journal Menopause, found that women with higher Mediterranean diet scores had significantly greater appendicular lean mass index, a measure of skeletal muscle, and higher lumbar spine bone mineral density. independent of whether they had previously used hormone therapy. This association held in a non-Mediterranean population, meaning it was not simply a cultural confound. A separate study in southern Spain confirmed that vegetable, fruit, and nut intake were significantly associated with bone mineral density in postmenopausal women. Phytate, a compound found in legumes, nuts, and cereals, was positively associated with bone mineral density at multiple femoral and lumbar spine sites in a 2023 analysis of 561 postmenopausal women. Calcium-rich components, including sardines with bones, leafy greens, and yogurt, reinforce this structural benefit. Declining estrogen increases insulin resistance and promotes visceral fat storage, the kind that concentrates around the abdomen. Chronic low-grade inflammation, measurable through high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, rises during the menopausal transition and contributes to joint discomfort, mood changes, and accelerated bone loss. The Mediterranean pattern addresses both pathways simultaneously. Polyphenols in extra virgin olive oil, particularly oleocanthal, activate pathways that support glucose uptake. Research shows postmenopausal women following a Mediterranean pattern have lower fasting insulin and improved insulin resistance scores compared to those following Western-style diets. Omega-3 fatty acids from oily fish shift cell membrane composition toward anti-inflammatory signaling molecules called resolvins. Fiber from legumes, whole grains, and vegetables slows glucose absorption and feeds the gut microbiota that regulate blood sugar. A 2024 systematic review observed that postmenopausal women following the Mediterranean diet tended to have lower body weight, blood pressure, triglycerides, and LDL cholesterol. Many plant foods central to the Mediterranean diet, legumes such as chickpeas and lentils, flax seeds, and certain whole grains, contain phytoestrogens. These are compounds structurally similar to human estrogen that can bind weakly to estrogen receptors. They are not a pharmaceutical replacement for estrogen, and their effects are far milder than hormone therapy. However, several research lines suggest they may play a supporting role during the menopause transition. Phytoestrogen intake has been associated with a reduced frequency of insomnia episodes in postmenopausal women. A meta-analysis cited in clinical nutrition literature found that phytoestrogens were associated with reduced frequency of hot flashes in menopausal women. A 2-year clinical trial of 116 postmenopausal women following a Mediterranean-resembling diet, high in virgin olive oil, nuts, vegetables, legumes, and fruits, observed an improvement in reported menopausal symptom scores over the study period. These are associations and observed outcomes, not guarantees, and individual response varies. The 2024 systematic review in Ames Public Health identified several practical priorities for menopausal women adapting the Mediterranean pattern. Protein becomes more important after 50. Aim for 20 to 30 grams per meal from sources such as oily fish, Greek yogurt, eggs, legumes, and nuts to support the muscle mass that resistance to bone loss depends on. Calcium-rich foods, sardines with bones, kale, fortified foods, and yogurt directly support bone mineral density alongside adequate vitamin D. Extra virgin olive oil should replace industrial seed oils as the everyday cooking fat. It is the diet's most researched single component. 2 to 3 portions of oily fish per week, salmon, mackerel, sardines, deliver the EPA and DHA linked to cardiovascular, cognitive, and joint support. Low consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages has been independently associated with lower joint and muscle complaints in menopausal women. This is not a restrictive diet. It is an additive, nutrient-dense framework built for exactly this stage of life.